Okay, Doug, we have some questions for you here. Typically, how much time does it take to build a spend map and sourcing plan?
You know, good question. It really, the data that is needed to come out of a typical financial system can be generated by a simple report. It could take as little as 15 minutes by a good controller or finance exec. And then once you get that data and you start coding it, that's where the lion's share of the work is going to come from. But that might take a couple of days, maybe 16 man hours. But the output is going to be very valuable. That spend map will become the roadmap, if you will, for the organization in terms of everything that they're going to attack and source. So I'd highly encourage everybody to do that.
You know, as I was listening to this, I would guess each company is its own individual case in putting this together. But how does it factor in if a company has maybe one expense that, because of a long-term commitment, may be a little too high? How does that factor in as you are building this new spending map and sourcing plan?
Well, that's a good question. So one of the things that we try to do is, as I showed you, and I know I covered a lot of slides there, but when we build that spend map, if we put contract end dates into the left-hand side of that spend map, we can analyze that pretty quickly. And again, the suppliers are under no obligation to renegotiate with you. But if you're more than halfway through a contract, in most cases, and reach out to a supplier and say that you want to renegotiate, oftentimes they'll say yes, and they're doing it selfishly because they're trying to protect their revenue stream. So again, they're under no obligation to do that. But if you're more than midway through an agreement, it wouldn't hurt. Once you have some benchmarks in hand, it wouldn't hurt to contact them and say, look, we really like what you're doing, but we need to focus our organization on cost control. And most suppliers will understand that. That's something that everybody is dealing with today, and they might be willing to renegotiate.
You know, Doug, these strategies really do make a lot of sense. So why aren't more companies or organizations using this suggested approach already?
Well, a lot of companies try to sell their way to profitability. So instead of focusing on bottom line on operations, they focus on selling more widgets, more cars, more furniture, and hoping that they'll hit their profitability targets that way. And that works. I mean, it works for a lot of companies. But, a more effective approach is to attack your top line and your bottom line simultaneously. Do it in parallel. Most purchasing departments are very tactical and transactional, meaning they're focused on cutting a PO, they're focused on getting inventory in the door to keep the production line moving or keeping people satisfied, but they're not focused on the strategic aspects of the buy. And that's why it's important to build that spend map to have a strategic perspective, then attack those categories in a methodical, prioritized way, and focus on the strategic elements of the purchase. What am I buying? What am I buying most often? What are the big drivers of cost in this category, and how do I reduce them? So once you get out of that tactical, transactional mindset, then you can start to drive real value, real cost savings to the bottom line.